So it's been raining. You know, some of us, you know, some of us ain't as lucky as you, Pete. Anyway, I'm gonna go and get my tea. Sod you. Okay. Oh, and I gotta get an orange while I'm listening to Kate. Hang on a minute. Right, Kate.
Yes.
Apparently, you've got some news for us, so you may as well give us that news.
Oh, okay.
Ruth. Well, congratulations on your pregnancy. Well done.
Yeah, I've turned my camera back on, but it doesn't seem to want to come on.
Well, we're not missing anything. Don't worry about it. That was really horrible. I'm sorry. Come on.
Oh, I did want to show you because what I want to tell you and show you is
Why
nudity.
don't you do an
Just
audio?
spit it out.
Spit it out, come on.
I've got a little puppy.
Oh,
And he's gorgeous. He's really smart. I only got him yesterday afternoon. And when he wants a wee, he goes to the door. And he's only tiny.
Aww.
He's the cutest thing. And he's sleeping next to me here. Pardon?
we need to see.
Well, why I turned on my camera, but it doesn't seem. No, I turned it off. I'm sorry. Is it on?
No.
Richard, can you give her a go? Can you see what's wrong? Hang on a minute.
It's there, it's just no picture.
Mm.
Okay.
The camera's on. Oh, well, perhaps it'll pop on later or something. But he's gorgeous. He's all black and he's little.
Hang on, I've asked you to start your camera.
Okay.
By the way, Pete's offered to look after your cat.
Oh, right. The cat, I don't think realizes what's happened.
Because
He's upstairs on my bed all the time. Here he is.
Pete feels really lonely. He likes cats.
Here he is.
Oh.
Isn't he gorgeous?
What is he?
He's half Yorkie, half poodle.
Oh.
And I met his mom. His mom is adorable. They delivered him and they brought mum with them. And she was adorable. She wasn't a mini Yorkie, but she was very smart, seemed very bright and active and cheerful. And this guy is just totally lovely. He hadn't complained about anything. It's like we've always known each other, isn't it?
Can I ask you something? What's the age?
9 weeks, I think. 9 weeks, something like that.
9 weeks.
Mm. She was very smart.
9 weeks. That's nothing.
He's really smart. It's clear. He's very clever, aren't you?
Oh wow! Oh, that's
And
really
independent. He was the last one. He was the last one. Yes, weren't you?
What's his name, Kate?
I don't know yet. Every time I think of one, everybody can think of a reason why not. So
something's come in my head. Blob.
Blob. Oh,
Blob.
charming.
Blob.
We quite like Gary, but one of my neighbor's husband is called Gary.
Curly.
Gary.
Curly.
Hugh. I like Hugh. Huey.
Huey. Oh, that sounds good. That sounds good. Oh, okay, that's fabulous.
Isn't he gorgeous?
I gotta admit, yeah, I gotta agree with that one. Can I ask you something else? Haven't you got some other news for us?
Have I?
Didn't you buy something the other day?
Oh, right. Oh, yes, we've got a lovely big display case coming.
Do you want to explain what that's about to everybody and sort of put everybody in picture?
Oh, a display case for the studio, for headquarters.
Yes.
From Restore in Thompson Street. And it's really very nice, quite big, looks very smart, even has a key to lock it for our good things. And I've suggested that I'm donating it in the memory of Lola Betty.
And it'll be Lola's cabinet.
Lola's cabinet. Only the best for Lola's cabinet.
But there is one slight problem with the cabinet, isn't there? Trying to get it to the studio.
Right. Okay. We're gonna have. I think it's too big to go in anybody's car. Right. So they at Restore, they have a man with a van. He doesn't work for them, but he does loads for them.
Yeah.
And what we have to do is get them to deliver it when you're there to receive it.
Well, I'm going to be there tomorrow. We're going to be there from approximately 1:30 tomorrow to about 5. So
Yeah,
that's
I
only
don't. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's, if that's going to suit them with not so much.
Yeah.
Notice. Can you give me the actual address?
Yeah, Cannon Hill Art Space, back lane, St. Nicholas Road. So they'll probably have to bring it down the lane.
Is there
Charlie Foxtrot
Postcode.
67 RH.
pardon? What is it?
Charlie Foxtrot 627 RH, I think.
7RH, because they're bound to ask. Okay, I'll
Yeah.
see if I can get it there tomorrow afternoon. If not, we'll have to arrange it another day.
So and also our little Barry Museum is going to be coming a reality. So that's good. So thank you for that, Kate. Thanks for everything.
No probs.
Right. Ruth, have you got any news for us from last Friday evening? Friday evening? Woo! Ghost walk. Kate,
Yes,
I thought Ruth was with you.
she hadn't turned up, lovely.
Oh, you keep talking as if Ruth is there. All right, tell us about what happened last Friday evening, Kate.
Oh,
Yes.
oh, it was
Yes.
an amazing setting, an amazing setting.
Good.
Um,
And what was
it was interesting, and it could knock your socks off with a little
what-
tweak here and there.
And it's a ghost walk, yes?
Yep, in Llandaff.
Exactly.
And you go right down by the river and the sound, and you see the weir, and in the trees in the dark with your torches. It's an amazing atmosphere.
Good.
But the storytelling could really be improved. A few dramatic effects. For instance, we all had little torches.
Yeah.
I think if the chap giving the talk had his own torch, a bit more powerful, he could light up exactly what he wanted to as he's telling the story. And just a little thing is it was hard to hear because of the noise, the wind and the trees and the river. But he kept turning his head while he was talking. Do you know what I mean?
Right.
To like look at and point at something, but I couldn't hear him then.
Because you've got a hearing aid, is that right?
No, I haven't got a hearing aid.
I thought you did.
But without but with all that noise and speaking several feet away and then turn your head, I couldn't hear him. But it was the story needs tightening up, but it could be stunning because it was an amazing experience to be walking around in the dark there. It really was.
Okay, thanks for that. Who else has got some news for us today? What about you, Richard?
Nothing really. Nothing exciting.
Okay, what about you, Richard?
Horrible weather.
Not Richard. Peter, anything from you, Peter?
No, I've not been out. No.
And the final bird in the pack and in the set is obviously wonderful. Kathy, anything you'd like to say? Oh, and
nothing exciting, thank you.
okay. So anyway, thanks for all the news for everybody this week. So it's we've got an hour from 11:21, and we're gonna start.
Oh, there's somebody at the door. That must be Ruth.
Okay, we've started anyway, so we're gonna get started on.
Okay.
So right, so we're gonna start off with. So we're looking at these images today, which some nice images in the background, and obviously this book as well. And I was given this last Thursday, and this image is actually done by a Rosemary Bramley in 1981. One copy of 100, and these are the thatched cottages, Old Barry, circa 1900. So I looked at this, and as much as I was quite pleased to see the thatched houses, I'm just very opinionated on the fact that on the other side, we've already got the houses, the terraced houses on the other side, I think. And is that end cottage still there in 1900, Richard? Richard? Hello?
Hello.
Bought
Is
them
Richard
the
there?
racket.
Right.
Which one now? The one on the far left.
So we got the three cottages which are on the right there. And we got
right.
Rose Cottage. We got Rose Cottage.
Yeah, there should be
and
another
we got-
one to the left though, surely.
They're down Cadoxton, aren't they?
No, these are
No,
all
this is-
Barry.
This is Barry.
This is Old Village Road.
Look how close to the road the two on the left are. Are they still
got-
there?
No, they're not.
No, that's fine.
I got
It's just this.
I got to be honest with
Closer
you.
to the road now.
Rose Cottage just looks a bit too big.
Yeah, it is two really though. I think or is it even three? I think
Yeah.
a relative of my mate Gail, I think, had them at one stage. I can't remember what she said about it.
Yeah.
There should be another cottage
Yeah.
to the right,
Yes.
because there were two.
When you say to the right hand side,
No,
to the right hand side of the two thatched ones.
There's 4 doorways.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, what I'll do, I'm gonna. This has actually been donated anyway. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna take this down to the studio, and we'll chuck this on our wall. Anyway, nice of you to join us, Ruth and Anne.
Oh, sorry.
Hi, Anne.
You've ruined my life, and Anne's naturally ruined my life as well. Anne, we're well into it today. We're just we've done all our news. So Anne, you can't tell us about your washing machine this week, and Ruth. I've told everybody, Ruth, that you're expecting.
Oh, fab.
Anne wants to know the name of your 8th baby.
Eighth baby.
8th one, yeah, your 8th one. Right. So, okay, moving on. What I'd like to do next is we've got a copy in front of me of it's called
Spook.
It's called The History and Antiques of Glamorganshire and Its Families, with numerous illustrations on wood from photographs of castles, abbeys, mansions, seals, tombs, arms by Thomas Nicholas. And this dates to 1874. Well, I feel that this is a rather interesting grappling publication, and a reason why the date is interesting, 1874, because this is a time when Glamorgan is just still a backwater of Wales, an agricultural backwater of Wales, and may I say it. And there's loads of really interesting facts in here, and from coal being extracted, and an interesting figure in Glamorgan. In 1872, 10 million tons. In 1872, 10 million tons, 131,000 tons of coal were being extracted in Glamorgan, even at that stage in 1872. And this is even before the construction of the larger port at Cardiff and Barry. And obviously, we've got the likes of Porthcawl and so on. There's some beautiful images in here, and the images are very much to do with before Cardiff Castle actually extends to be influenced by the rebuilding of William Burgess. We've also got a woodcut here, which we could do another week of Saint Donat's Castle. So there's some wonderful illustrations in here. I was actually interested to flick through the pages of this book, and I was interested to go towards the back of the book, and it's got a whole section on old and extinct families of Glamorgan.
Wow. Ooh.
You know, it's got, for example, the Gamage family of the Vale of Glamorgan, the Butler family of Dunraven, the Gamage of Coity. We've got the Lasaw family of Peterston and St Fagans, and the De Sully of Sully family, which is one that I wanted us to have a little look through today. The St John's of Fonmont Castle, the Humphrevilles, the De Breos family, the De Londres family, that's obviously associated with Ogmore. There's so many family names in here which have become extinct. The De Clare family after the Battle of Bannockburn in 1314, that's when that family died out. And I look through this and I'm thinking, where is the De Barry family? I've not come across the De Barry family in looking through these pages. I think I might, if I look a little bit more. We've got the Malafant family of Lantwick Major, and I can't find the De Barry family in it, which is very, very odd. But what I could do is mention about what our writer says in 1874 about the Sully family, and that's what we're going to look at now. And if any of those names of families you want me to just mention, I'll do one other. Please say, but first come, first serves. But before we do that, right, we're going to do the De Sully family. There's no illustration, so I'm just going to read out. So, De Sully of Sully. So Reginald De Sully received the lordship of Sully as his share of the lands of Glamorgan when conquered by Robert Fitzhammond. Now, since then, as you know, there's a great deal of debate who Reginald De Sully is. Ruth, what I'm going to do, right? What I'm going to do, Ruth, I'm going to. I know you want to chat about the dog, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to mute you guys a minute, if I may, so you can talk about the dog at the same time. So, not having a go, but I'm just going to do that. And you guys can have a natter about the dog at the same time. So here we go. I'm going to mute you for a minute. Right, good. So back to that, and good. You can chat away now. So right, back to where we were on the screen, and we're going to get that book back up there. Hamsters. What's that got to do with hamsters? Right. Okay. Hang on a minute. I'm trying to get these images back. Okay. There. Good. Right. Okay. De Sully. The Sullys, however, were not long continuance. So interested, we've had this great debate about where the name Sully came from, and so Reginald de Sully received the lordship of Sully from Robert Fitzhammond. Reginald was given the lordship of Sully before he was actually named. So whatever original name Reginald had, it was in my view definitely not Sully. He took his name from the local area, like the De Barry family did. You can agree or disagree, but that's my opinion. The Sullys in name really didn't continue for long. They really, really didn't continue for long. And male line having become extinct in the time of Edward I. So Edward I, I vaguely remember Edward I came to the throne in 1267. That might be right or wrong, but around then. Edward I was gone with the fairies by 1307. I think that's right. So sometime towards the end of the 1200s, the Sully family disappeared from the planet, right? When the heiress of the estate became the wife of Sir Thomas Avan, A-V-A-N, or Hafan, Avan, Lord of Afan, a descendant of Iestyn ap Gwrgan. Iestyn ap Gwrgan was the lord, the Glamorgan, the Morgannwg native lord, who sided with Robert Fitzhammond, and then Robert Fitzhammond turned against him, and Iestyn ap Gwrgan disappeared himself. So that's the last Welsh Cymric leader of Morgannwg. So Sir Thomas de Avan, she married him. His grandson, Sir Thomas de Havan, left an only daughter, Jane, who Sir William Blunt, who exchanged the lordships of Havan and Sully with Gilbert de Clare for lands in England. From him, the Blunts of Shropshire were descendants. So in other words, the land was exchanged to Gilbert de Clare. One of the things that made the de Clare family very, very powerful was that they started receiving huge tracts of land in the area and become a very, very powerful family indeed. And that's basically just a few things about the family of de Sully. Other names seem to come into play, such as back before the 1300s, such as Sir Walter de Sully, Sir Rumund de Sully, and Merrick de Sully. But we're not really sure where all these sort of names, whether they're all linked and so on. So you guys have got an opportunity, only one of you. I can either talk about the extinction of the St. Quintin's family of Cowbridge, or the D. Seawood family, the Lasaw family of Peterston, the Fleming family, various Flemings in the Vale of Glamorgan. We could discuss the de Humfreville family, the de Easterlin family of St. Donat's, the de Breas family, de Lundras, de Granville, the Beaucamps, the Nevilles, the de Clares, the Despensers, even the Fitzhammonds disappearing as well. Anyone? Actually, we'll go with Peter. Which one do you want me to look at briefly, Peter? Extinct
any of them,
families.
you choose, I don't mind.
Should we do the Despensers? Let's do the Despensers. It's quite a long one. Right. Now, the Despensers are rather interesting because they sort of come into play when the de Clare families, the last male line gets killed at Bannockburn. Right. They're around, but the Despensers take over the lordship of Glamorganshire. Hugh Le Spencer had a son, also Hugh, who married Eleanor, eldest sister of the last Gilbert de Clare above named, and in her right became Lord of Glamorgan. In her right, then in Hugh Despenser's right, becoming Lord of Glamorgan. Oh, and actually, the lordship of the de Clares was a lot more than Glamorgan. It extended into Gwent all over the place. It was huge. Too ambitious of extending his territory and favoured by the king, he came into conflict with the de Broas family of the Lords of Gower and other barons, among whom were the de Bohowens, who were very powerful in Wales, and the Marchers, the Mortimer family, very powerful on the borders, the Says, the Talbots, the Berkeleys, the Mowbrays, the Audley, who took up arms basically after the de Clares died out in 1814. The Despensers took over, and I got to be honest with you, Hugh Despenser, and I'm going to use a bit of bad language, pissed everybody off. And not so long after, the people that he annoyed also turned against Edward II, right? And they all ganged up to displace Edward II. The Despensers became the protectors of the king, and obtained a sentence of deprivation and banishment against the obnoxious Despenser family. So in other words, the Despensers fell out of power. And the Earl of Leicester, however, who was at their head, was defeated in the field, and the Despensers' prospects once more brightened. So, the Despensers came back into the throve for a little bit. However, it's not long before 1327, before Edward II is thrown off the throne. So Despensers pee everybody off. They have a little bit of a victory alongside the king. They pee everybody off again, and listen to what happens next. The young Hugh Despenser is said now to have procured from the king, in addition to his former lordship of Glamorgan, the manors and castles of Swansea, basically from the de Breu's family, Oystermouth, Pennard, and Locharingower, which he exchanged with Eleanor, wife of John de Breu, for the manors and the castles of Usk, Treguff. If anyone's ever heard of Treguff Castle, sorry, I've gone off in a bit of a tangent. Treguff Castle is the biggest castle in Wales. It's a huge place. It's a massive wall going around this big area. Time Team did an episode about it. It's in private hands, and nobody ever gets to see it. It's huge. It's a bit like Dinas Powys Castle. It's an endless wall that goes around an area with a few buildings. But because it's in private hands, nobody ever gets to see it. It's a massive place, Treguff. Tregrug, Treguff. Treguff is, I think, the name that they used in Time Team. Anyway, long story short, the ruins of this... What?
De Breu.
I got Tregrug. If that's a pronunciation, that's better than what I've got. Thanks for that, Anne. The ruins of his magnificence are still seen at Caerphilly. In other words, the Despensers were in charge of Caerphilly. Adversity, however, in time overcame both king and favour, and his father having already perished, Despenser lost his life on the scaffold, having been impeached before Parliament at Hereford in 1326. In other words, Despenser and Edward II were captured and then taken to the Black Tower at Lantrisant, and the Despenser lost his life. His sentence was to be drawn upon a hurdle, with trumps and trumpets throughout all the city of Hereford, and then to be hanged and quartered. And by the way, when he was drawn on a hurdle, basically a hurdle is basically a wooden fence, a wattle fence, drawn upon a hurdle. So he's dragged through the streets of Hereford, at this point probably naked. He's still alive, in absolute agony, sores. He's had stones chucked at him, human excrement, everything chucked at him. And this is in Hereford, and then to be hanged and quartered. The reason why I'm going into a lot of detail about this is because it directly affects Glamorgan. Everybody that he's lord over, like all these lords at St. Donat's, he's obviously the High Lord at Cardiff. You've got Cosmeston, which we'll mention in a short while. All these different places, Barry, so on, Selly. It's an uproar. It's a lawless place, Glamorgan, in the 1110s. Start again, wrong dates. The 1210s from start again. Can't get my words out. 1112, get it right. The 1310, so after 1316, I don't know where I was going with that. Right, I was having a bad moment. After 1316, 1320s, Glamorgan was a lawless place, massively lawless. In fact, the original native leaders had a chance to regain Glamorgan from the English, the Normans. It didn't happen. Very lawless place. Cowbridge was probably the only place left standing. And basically, when you think about it, lots of stories to do with piracy, shipping problems, and all the rest of it come into the story of Barry at that stage as well. So, interestingly enough, the Despensers, out of power, losing control of the Vale of Glamorgan, right? Strangely enough, regain power. They actually regained power. The Despensers regained power for a while. It was Hugh and Edward Despenser, Hugh III, went on it with a begging bowl to the new king, Edward III, who was in fact a child, and said, look, we served your dad quite well. I know your dad wasn't popular, and your dad ended up with a poker up his backside at Berkeley Castle, right? But we did serve your dad well, right? you know, please give us back control of Glamorgan. Please give us back control. And basically bestowed upon basically they had some power back, and the one thing that we do know, for 6 years, you know, 6 years, they ran amok, right? They ran amok throughout Glamorgan again, just as their dad had done, Hugh Despenser. This again really annoyed everybody, and but for a while, you know, there was infighting, there was uproar in the area, you know, with the lordships of with the lordship of Kenfig and Cowbridge and so on. Everything's all over the place. What good thing that happened was that the plague sorted it all out.
Oh, great.
Well, it did, because when we go, the last image we see is Cosmeston. The plague sorted it out, because what happened is that Hugh died of the plague.
Oh,
So in other words, not only is the lordship that is governed by the Despenser family gone, right? Most of the lordships in Glamorgan are wiped out due to the plague. You know, Barry's wiped out due to the plague. We've got Cosmeston wiped out due to the plague. Those are some of the ones that we know about, right? And then it's seemingly that sort of the power, what was left of the power of Glamorgan, it gets worse and worse. It gets worse and worse for the Despensers. So Hugh the Lord dies, right? And then whatever's left of the possessions of the Despenser family that haven't been seized by everybody else goes to Edward Despenser, who is actually the brother of Hugh, who's obviously Edward's getting on a little bit at this stage. Edward Despenser basically goes out to fight with the Black Prince. So, in other words, you know, nobody's really in charge of Glamorgan again. He just buggers off again, you know, wanting to fight, you know. Eventually coming back, and he dies at Cardiff in 1375. And I think what we've got there is maybe the one who dies at 1375 is actually Edward's son Edward, because it might be that Edward dies somewhere along the line with the Black Prince probably, and then another Edward, the Edward that dies in Cardiff in 1375. Edward Despenser is the son of Edward, who's actually the son of Hugh, the one who's hung, drawn, and quartered. He's died at Tewkesbury Abbey, leaving his son as successor in the lordship of Glamorgan. At which stage there's not much of the lordship of Glamorgan in the hands of the Despenser family. And it's a rather interesting story that goes on. Now we've got Thomas Despenser, who's the son of Edward, and basically what happens then, Thomas it was who petitioned Parliament for a reversal of the sentence of banishment still recorded against his great-grandfather, though now as regarded his family practically a dead letter. In other words, the Despensers feel they're in charge of Glamorgan, which is a big area, remember. It goes all the way from Cardiff, all the way through to Gower, Llanelli, all the way up to sort of wherever in the valleys. I'm saying wherever. It's a really difficult boundary. In this, he succeeded. The Despensers, okay, you can have a little bit of land in Glamorgan, wherever that is, as well as in obtaining the favour of Richard II. So, in other words, these Despensers are seemingly, I'm going to say it now, excuse if this is out of line, but there are slickers of the king, right? They think that they can continually go to the kings of the day and say, look, you know, we're supporting you, and so on. And for a time, with great zeal and devotion, supported the king's cause against the House of Lancaster. So these were Yorkists. The Yorkists were more successful than Lancastrians, but in this case, neither Lord and the people was a person long to be depended upon. In other words, what we're saying is that things really didn't go well with the Despensers. Again, the Despensers basically deserted a master and assisted in his deposition. So in other words, the Despensers were then responsible for removing Richard II, and basically Henry IV was put on the throne, but really didn't appreciate being put on the throne by the Despensers. Strangely enough, Henry IV showed little appreciation of the Despenser's services. As soon as he had seated himself on the throne, the Despensers were deprived of all their estates. They're not liked. Apprehended at Bristol in his attempt to fly the kingdom, condemned by the House of Commons and executed in the marketplace of Bristol in 1400. He left a son, Richard. I wish I wouldn't want to be Richard, right? Who, in 1414, I think in 1414, and one survived. Yeah, I'm not really sure what this means here. His estates in Glamorganshire, which had been given to the crown, were actually restored to Richard, who was a Despenser. The estates were actually restored to, by the looks of it, his daughter. And in other words, what that meant.
I was wondering if that was Coity.
The Coites were the de Gamis family, because you got Isabella. So what's happening, and this is what happens. It's a bit of cynicism, right? So the Isabella, who's the daughter of Richard, right, in 1414. Okay, Richard dies in 1414. That's what that means. I couldn't really read it. There was a bit of Latin in you. Richard leaves. Richard leaves a daughter, Isabella. Isabella has restored the land. However, when Isabella's restored the land, when she marries, the name of the Despenser becomes extinct. And the estates go to the next lord, who he marries, meaning that the Despensers finally forever are wiped out of history. Thus ended. Here we go, Anne. Right, is this fair? Thus ended the proud, grasping, and unfortunate family of Despenser, who had been oppressors of the weak and flatterers and traitors towards the strong. And I think it's quite appropriate that Henry kicked them out. Basically, he was made king because of the Despensers, and he got rid of the Despensers at the same time.
Oh wow! Full circle.
Full circle of damn right deceit. So hopefully some of you have learned something from that. So what I want us to do now is I want us to go to the next image, which is, now what are we looking at next? Nobody shouts out. This is obviously the Roman villa somewhere, but it's not a Roman villa at all. It says here a superb aerial view of the remarkable Roman building at Coldnap Barry, and the building comprised a total of 21 rooms arranged around the central courtyard, and was probably constructed in the late 200s. We know that now, and early 300s. During the reign of the self-proclaimed Emperor Carausius. His position on the coast with it says this position on the coast with excellent views across the Bristol Channel begs the question of maritime association. This building basically stood for about 10 years and then was demolished.
I
So
think, oh, sorry.
Right.
Apologies.
Oh, go on. You think? Go on.
No,
Let's have.
I think Peter was giving a wry smile then. I don't know whether he was thinking of, he was trying to say that he wasn't right, what he was saying. I don't know.
Well, Pete.
No, I'm blaming him for something he hasn't done.
And what it is? Pete's just texted me. He said he was actually breaking wind and he had a wry smile.
Did you say this is Cold Nap?
Yeah, this is the Roman building called Nap.
Oh.
And if you actually go, I don't want to. What I want to do is I want to do this little bit of the story, not actually the Roman site, but what I want us to do, right? If you count the number of rooms in there, right? If you start from the bottom corner there that faces our screen, if you go towards the right, you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19. Right? You count 19 rooms. Now, if you think of, if you go from that original corner, right, where you've got on the left, where you've got like cobbles, if you go all the way to where that building is, which is the Water Edge Hotel, there's a room that there's an area that might be included as a room there, so that's 20. There's also talk that one of those other rooms that we counted could be divided. In fact, if you count this properly, right, if you count in the corner facing you, that's one room, that's 2 rooms. That big area there is likely to be another 2 rooms because you can't see the division because it's robbed out. So that's 4. The room next door to it is another 2 rooms at least. So that's 6. The room there is marked as a cellar. Another room, 7, 8, 9, 10. If you think of that one in the corner, 11, 12, that's 2 rooms. 13, 14, 15. When you get to 15, that one in the middle is actually an entrance area, but that's classed as a room. 15, 16, 17, 18. If you look in that room from that corner in again, 18, that's probably 2 rooms, 19, 20. Corridor, 21, 22, 23. There's up to 23 rooms there. And we've missed out as well. There's probably 24 and 25 because if you go with what I've said, if you go towards that bottom there and you go along towards the Water Edge Hotel, you've got the other room that might have been there, and you've got another room that was under the Water Edge Hotel. So that's up to 25 rooms in this building. Very, very interesting, that. So what we then got then is that the title of this little insert today, well, not a little insert, this is mainly what we're doing. This is called Rescue Archaeology, Barry and the South. This is again from South Glamorgan Heritage. I got to be honest with you, when I was still on talking terms with the Glamorgan Grant Archaeological Trust, we were given 40 of these books, and at the time we were selling them for like $2.50 each. I wish I'd kept hold of them. I could have sold these for about 30, 40 quid now, but that's life. I wasn't much of a businessman back then, Anne. So
I don't know about that. You were in your infancy, yes.
in my infancy, yeah, exactly. Now I like this image more than the other one, right? Because yeah, I like it. This there is basically in the front there, and basically what they've done, they put this little concrete, they're building a little platform there, a viewing platform on the left, and what there is a wall, and that's a collapsed wall. Now what you've got in the right hand corner at the top, they've already started restoring the wall. Now what they did with this site, as they were still excavating it, they had a stonemason in restoring the wall. And that's basically what they did. They were restoring it as they were working on. This is quite a useful technique, and they do it in Egypt and Spain now. And but I feel more than ever that there's more that they could have done in regards to restoration. Like they could have made this wall on the left a bit higher from the materials that have collapsed. but I'm not going to criticize them anymore because back then the Glamorgan Grant Archaeological Trust did a really good job in saving this site. So no more criticism. It's just my feelings. So an external veranda was constructed on the seaward side of the Cold Nap Roman building. To the right, several rooms of the building itself, whereas to the left, there lies the collapsed retaining wall or portico of the veranda. So in other words, what we've got this external wall. Now, usually when we look at reconstructions, that's how the way it looks. You could actually think that maybe this was part of more of the internal fabric of the building, or is it an external wall? Mainly, most people think it's an external wall. We don't extend it further because all that's been robbed out. But you can actually see quite clearly that this is a cobbled area made out of the beach pebbles. We've got to be very careful there to try and work out whether those beach pebbles are actually not being used in construction or have actually been used in construction. So that's the eerie problem with this. And you can actually see, if you look at these stones on the left, you can see another line of stones. You can sort of see a more or less alignment. That may have been maybe coping stones on the left there. You can see these sort of on-end stones. They may have been coping stones. You can see a row of them all the way through. That wasn't reconstructed. So that's the point. Maybe that could have been useful, but that's life. So to many people, Barry will present no more than visions of a large modern town, a docks in which boats laden with bananas are common visitors. Well, Geest was what we did in Barry back then. Yeah, we still had a bit of coal. This is 1984, but we've got this site. And a holiday resort to which thousands of day trippers travel by coach and train each year. In fact, that's when Butlins were still in Barry. I think, when did Butlins close in Barry? About 1984 as well, didn't it? It became the Majestic a bit before. In fact, nothing could be more misleading. One only has to skim the surface to see that Barry and the Southern Vale of Glamorgan virtually encapsulates the entire story of South Glamorgan heritage. Am I going to agree with that? Bloody hell, yes. I do. I really like this image, and what we've those that are very, very lucky to get copies of any books that we send out, Romans in South Wales and Romans in the Vale of Glamorgan. And by the way, the Romans in South Wales book, out of the I think 800 plus that we printed, we've got 20 copies left. So that's not bad going after 2 years.
So
I kept all...
covered over? Was it just covered over then?
No, this is still there. And what I do with my books now, I actually send out a postcard of. I've actually got the original postcards that Glamorgan Grant Archaeological Trust printed with the aerial view. So if you're lucky to get a copy of any of my Roman books, you get a postcard as well. So yeah, it's been a delight sending them out, because we had a big stack in the studio, and I've just been getting them out with the books, and you get an aerial view. And it's still there to see today. It's still, there's a viewing platform on the left. You look out over the site. I'm not too sure that everything that we see on the notice board is correct because it's been woked. But one thing that we do know about the site is that it was excavated, and we do know that there was another Roman site here before the final site that was demolished in the 300 years AD. So
Was
once
that not
again,
thought to be a maritime headquarters with a harbour below?
exactly. Once again, many of the rich and varied hidden secrets have recently been revealed by the spade of the rescue archaeologist. I mentioned last week that at one stage in the 1980s, you had probably about 150 archaeologists working in the Vale of Glamorgan. You had a team at Cosmaston, you had a team at Llanmaes, you had a team at Cowbridge, you had a team here doing stuff in Barry, you had a team at Biglis, you had lots of teams in the Vale of Glamorgan. I've lost which ones. I've said Landock, got loads of, about 150 people as archaeologists working in the Vale of Glamorgan. It was a major industry because of the manpower services scheme. But obviously, how many archaeologists work in the Vale of Glamorgan now.
Yeah.
Once so here we go. So the Glamorgan Grant Archaeological Trust has conducted at least 4 major programs of work, and this is 1984, as well as, and this is talking about the Barry area, as well as a series of lesser projects throughout the bounds of the modern town and its environs. The sites explored range from the Iron Age right through to the medieval period and have all produced some extremely interesting results. We move on.
Hmm.
Now, I'm gonna, Pete, this is
Yeah.
a red herring question, right? Don't fall for it, Pete. This is a red herring question. What are we looking at?
I'm not sure.
I'm glad you said I'm not sure. We'll give somebody else a chance. Richard might know the answer, so I'm going to go with Anne. What? This is not what you think it is, Anne. Tell me. Think outside the box.
Is it, well, just stones. I mean, I don't
Yeah,
know.
yeah.
Well, there's some upright stones that look a bit like, standing stones, but I don't expect they are.
I'm glad you didn't say burial. So both of you, you're right. It's not a burial. A so-called corn drying kiln. This is a corn dryer.
Oh,
Oh,
This is a corn drying kiln discovered in excavations at the Roman farmstead of Biglis. Recent work in experimental archaeology has revealed that such structures would have been inefficient in the drying of corn and are more likely to have been used to roast grain in a brewing process.
oh.
Yeah.
Hmm.
So Richard knew the answer. So,
I think this was an area was regularly flooded, wasn't it?
yeah, this is up on the hill overlooking the area that's regularly
Okay.
flooded. And perfect, Peter. You should have said, Peter, the flooded area is perfect for fishing. Keep with your theme, Richard, Peter. So let us
Well, that was the
begin.
main water source for the whole of Barry, wasn't it?
Do you know, to be honest with you, I would. Oh, by the way, whilst we interject, if somebody can go over to Biglis and the pump house and take a photograph of the Biglis pump station, I would be really appreciative. By the way, my article wasn't used in the Barron District this week simply because they had no reporters this week.
Oh,
They had nobody on the reporter desk to put my column in the newspaper, so they just copy and pasted from everywhere else.
That was last week.
right.
Yeah.
Move.
So let us begin at Biglis, near Palmerston, on the eastern outskirts of the modern settlement, where between 1978 and 1979, the Trust explored the remains of a late Iron Age and Romano-British farmstead. The site began its history in the early 1st century, before the arrival of the Romans. At this time, it comprised an unenclosed group of circular timber huts, similar to those known from Witton in the Central Vale underneath the Roman site at Witton. The farmsteads may have been abandoned for a while during the disruptive years around the military conquest. So this is one of those such sites. Now, that's what we were gonna show you from Glanamore. So by the time that we're looking at this type of site has long since gone out of use. So back to our Biglis. By the latter part of the noughties, the site of Biglis that has this corn dryer had been reoccupied and was eventually surrounded by a series of palisades. I don't know why, because it was in a marshy area. In the late 200s, a more permanent rubble boundary bank was constructed. An interjection, that rubble boundary bank may have been used in later on in the medieval period as a boundary for a medieval complex, but that's something else. In all this time, however, although the occupants took on many of the trappings associated with well Romanized areas, the buildings of the farmstead never appeared to have progressed beyond timber huts of various sizes, some boundary walls, and things like this. The inhabitants of this small farmstead at Biglis appear to have practiced a mixed agricultural economy, where both stock rearing and corn growing were of some importance, and naturally fishing as well. Now, what I would like to do, these were actually found at Biglis. The discovery of numerous coins on the site indicates their participation in market situations. But these coins, lots of them are really poor quality. You know, you're not really going to get much for one of these coins. Maybe you might, one of those coins, a couple of them, you might be able to get some bread. Whereas the use of well-made pottery and jewelry also reveals a way of life tied closely to the order created by Rome. The Biglis farm said belongs to a group of sites now becoming quite familiar in South Glamorgan, whereas our next visit is to a large single building, which has so far proved virtually unique throughout Britain, and back to Glanamore. So the site concerned is Glanamore Cold Nap, where in the summer of 1980, a remarkable story gradually unfolded. Further work was carried out in the following summer in order to glean every scrap of information on this immensely exciting find. Indications of a Roman building at this location were first identified in 1966, building construction work on an adjacent hotel, which is, as we know, that building there, the Water Edge Hotel. An almost square structure was uncovered, and that square structure is in fact that building there, by the cart, that building there, that square building there. It was lost. Okay, when I said 1966, I meant 1960, sorry. An almost square structure was uncovered, and at that time was interpreted as a Roman mortuary house. It was a further 20 years before the true picture was to be revealed. Now, I got to be honest with you, right? You know, I've always been wounded by the fact that that building wasn't preserved, and at that stage, that building that was founded in 1960 would have been the only Roman building anywhere in the area on display if they could have saved it. But they didn't think like that in the 1960s. I remember when I did a course which was a master's in industrial archaeology. I remember the lecturer, Dr. Philip Ryden, University of Wales, Cardiff. He basically said, well, in the 1960s, we suffered the greatest indignities, where all our industrial history throughout South Wales was just torn down. We lost it all. So now I'm teaching you about what was on maps. I'm not teaching you about the buildings that once existed. And now people are concerned about industrial buildings when most of them were already gone. And the same could be said about the tragedy of Roman and medieval buildings, because, you know, nothing of the like had been found in the 1960s. So it was so important in the 1980s that this was saved. By 1979, the site overlooked an attractive foreshore had been selected for a modern housing development. In November of that year, the Trust conducted trial excavations some distance to the north of 1960 discovery. The results proved negative. They didn't find it. And it was not until several months of surface wearing that traces of mortared masonry were located a short distance to the south by somebody whose name will never be familiar to anyone, Howard J. Thomas, our famous eminent local archaeologist. He was wandering around the he was wandering around the tennis court, because it was a tennis court back then. And the tennis court was going to be ripped up, and he saw some stones sticking through the tennis court. And it'd been a hot summer or something in that time. And he said, there's a building underneath here. Further trial work was undertaken, which resulted in an emergency program of full-scale excavations. This site was going to be demolished. Gradually over the next 8 weeks, the remains of a large one-phase building were uncovered. Now, the building, this building here, was the later building. But what we do know is that if you look along there, if you look along these two big rooms, You can see what looks like a trench which has had all the stones taken out. That is the outline of another building, right? There's other evidence on this image of other walls, right? So we've got other evidence of buildings from the site. And interesting enough, if you look at the soil color there, you can see that that looks as if that soil may contain bits of charcoal and bits of material from a building that was then eventually demolished, and whatever wood was there was burnt or whatever. That's the story. So if we go back again to this image, gradually over the next 8 weeks, the remains of a large one-phase building were uncovered. The discoveries caused such excitement that, with the help of South Glamorgan County Council, the Vale of Glamorgan Borough Council, and the Welsh Office, the site was miraculously saved from the clutches of development and was scheduled as an ancient monument. This enabled further work to be carried out in the following year. And I don't know if any of you have listened to my legacy lectures on YouTube, where I talk about I saw the excavations, and it was the year that I think Martina Navratilova was playing tennis at Wimbledon, and it was a really nice hot summer, and they were doing excavations there. So that must be 1980, 1981. And I went there with my mum, and I ended up buying a piece of Roman tile. They were selling some of the roof tile to raise funds for the excavation, and so I bought a bit of roof tile, and you could see the excavations, and I became fascinated ever since. I think I've asked this question of Richard. Did he actually remember the excavations? And either he said yes or no, but we'll come back to that in when we do the questions. So the building was found to comprise a total of at least 20 rooms arranged around a central open courtyard. The square structure discovered in 1960 probably formed an almost freestanding building tower to the immediately southwest of the main block. And external veranda was identified on the seaward side itself, fronted by a portico of some kind. What might have happened is that there might have actually been columns along that front portico, by the front sort of portico there, columns, and it may have been sort of a veranda-like appearance. But we do know that all that material was taken away when the site was demolished and used elsewhere, probably in Cardiff. Because that's where lots of the material would have been going to on flat-bottomed boats. Obviously, the building material for Cardiff Castle, Cardiff Roman fort there. Very few finds were recovered from the site, but those surviving all seem to indicate a date towards the late 200s, early 300s for the main phase of building occupation. In other words, what we do see is that if I go back, we'll do another talk about this when we're all together in Barry, where those two individuals are looking, right? In the room next door to that room, there's actually a burnt area. And we do believe that there's areas of burning in front here as well. Like not timber building, but somebody had actually had a cooking fire. And we do believe that the workmen were actually cooking in this area as they were building the site. And this was actually the back entrance. When they excavated that, they actually found the complete height of a collapsed wall that had collapsed inwards. That is actually a collapsed wall, but they could have reconstructed the whole thing, but it would have been a bit weird freestanding, with the gales and stuff, so they didn't do it. So I'm not going to be critical of that. It's still there, I think, the collapsed wall. So this, together with its clear relationship to the sea and its important position in the Bristol Channel, all seems to suggest construction during the reign of the self-proclaimed Emperor Carausius, who reigned from 286-287 to 293. The exact purpose of the building remains a mystery. A possible explanation is that it formed part of a mansion, the equivalent of a modern inn, in which case a bathhouse probably lay in the surrounding area. That may have been eroded away by the sea, by the way. Such a complex would have been used by officials concerned with government affairs. Glan-y-Mor would have provided an excellent location to await a ship on the correct tide. And actually, I've just thought of something. I never thought about this. It's unlikely that the bathhouse would have been on the south side of the building, because in that case, the southwesterly winds would have blown the smell of the burning furnaces into the building. So it's likely that the bathhouse would have been towards the north east of the building at Glanamore, underneath those buildings built in the 1950s, 60s, or whatever they were. So that might actually still be there. Glanamore would have provided an excellent location to await a ship on the correct tide. Alternately, we must not overlook the strengthening of coastal defences and installation in the 280s, 290s at this time. The forts at Cardiff, Lucca, and possibly Neath were all refortified during the latter 200s, and the building at Barry may well have been linked to an overall network. I discussed that in Romans in South Wales a lot as well. The site at Coldnap is not only important for this unique Roman find. In addition, during the excavations, a small round-cornered structure was found to overlie the earlier building. This dry stone construction has since been radiocarbon dated to the 800s and is so far at that stage the only authenticated domestic stone building in this part of Wales. But now we've found others since. So finally today, what we are going to do, we're going to go on to something else. What I'd like to do is just mention one other thing about this image with these coins. There were coins found at Glanamore. These are obviously the ones from Biglis, a selection of Roman coins discovered during excavations upon the farmstead of Biglis. Not only do the coins indicate the inhabitants of this site were involved in a market economy, they also provide essential dating evidence on various parts of activity within the farmstead. Now, again, this is how we're able to date Glanamore from coins found there. We're also able to date coins from Cosmester Medieval Village. We'll end with today. But before we get to Cosmester Medieval Village, and that will lead us on to next week, we've got to do something else. And what that something else is this. That is one of the buildings at Old Village Road. That we've obviously got about 5 publications about the Barry, the Barry Village that we'll use when we've got the classes live and active in Barry again. So we can now leave the foreshore and the Roman period and move slightly north to Old Village Road, where parts of the medieval village of Barry have been explored and excavated. So we've moved away from the Roman era. And actually, we managed to put the early medieval period in there as well. You notice that the early medieval building made out the ruins of Glanamore. So we've got a bit of sort of consistency here, and we've moved on to the medieval period. So Old Village Road, where parts of the medieval village of Barry have been explored and excavated extensively by, what's that guy's name? His surname is Thomas. Howard Thomas, there he goes again. The site is not far from Barry Castle, the medieval manorial centre of the De Barry family. It was first explored in 1962, when the remains of a substantial late building from the 200s, a peasant house, were revealed. The threat of a housing development led to further excavations by the Glamorgan Archaeological Trust in 1977 at Coed y Ffynnon. That's right, Ffynnon. Oh, it is Coed y Ffynnon, isn't it? That close there off Old Village Road anyway. And resulted in the discovery of 2 more peasant houses directly in the middle of the junction where the road goes into the estate, Coed y Ffynnon. Obviously, there's a well there. That's where the Ffynnon comes from. And this is what it looked like. La, 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 la. You can imagine Compel and Clegg coming out of those houses, can't you? But that's in Yorkshire. All 3 houses were initially built in the early 1200s, but were considerably altered and modified before their final abandonment in the 1300s. I wonder why they were abandoned in the 1300s, particularly in the middle 1300s. What happened then? In their later stages, they were all well-built constructions, utilising dressed stone, bonded together with red clay. Now, we know that the red clay came from the old harbour. We know that the stones came from some Roman building. They had beaten clay floors, and 2 of the houses had definite internal open hearths. And I'm going to talk about some Roman building because some of the stones are well dressed, too well dressed for peasants like Anne and me. They had beaten clay floors and 2. Oh, back to the image. Ooh, beaten clay floors. And 2 of the houses had definite internal open hearths. Cooking would have been carried out over these hearths, and smoke would have risen to escape through the roof trusses and then into the thatch, and then gently out through the thatch itself. The roofs themselves are likely to have been constructed of thatch. There's no real evidence of a certain slate that may come from an unknown country called Cornwall. Slab-covered drains ran through the centre of each house and ensured relief from any excessive dampness. Moreover, despite general impressions of a squalid and dirty life in such peasant houses, the archaeological evidence from Barry suggesting the interior of these buildings were kept remarkably clean. Floors must have been swept frequently to remove domestic rubbish, because there wasn't a massive amount of rubbish inside these buildings, but there was sort of outside. So anyway, moving on to the last bit. So back to that image there. The houses belonged to a linear street settlement extending eastwards from the castle. Their excavation represented an important advancement in our understanding of shrunken and deserted medieval villages in South Wales. Our last site worthy of some mention is the Barry area. Takes us back to the Iron Age. It was discovered once again during a housing development at Westwood Corner in 1981. The remains of a substantial rock-cut ditch were recorded, and it may have represented something. Clearly, there is much of interest in the Barry area, often totally unexpected. How much more awaits discovered in this rich historic area? I'd just like to mention the caption for this image. A little look at Cosmeston, and then that's the end of our lecture today. So a general view of the two of the so there we go. There you go. The one in the middle. The 2-roomed medieval peasant house at the village of Barry. The house was first constructed in the early 1200s with round cornered walls. Round cornered walls. Interesting. That would assist in the height of the building. It was modified and adapted over subsequent years until it was finally abandoned in the mid part of the 1300s. Why does everyone start dying off in the mid 1300s? Don't know why. The floor of the house consisted of beaten clay, and a slab drain can be seen running through the centre. And the construction, drain. There's the drain there. The construction shows this centre and 2 other medieval houses which had been excavated, mainly by Howard and his gang. The desertion indicates a process of shrinkage within the settlement in the later part of the medieval period. And then finally, this is what we're going to be doing next week. An area view during the early stages of excavation upon Cosmeston medieval village. Following trial work in 1982, a long-term project has been established, a joint venture between South Glamorgan County Council, Glamorgan Archaeological Trust, with support from Dow Corning and all the other companies there, and ICI eventually. Near the centre left can be seen the remains of an excavated dovecote. There you can see that round thing there. In the corner of a garden at the maze. The main village excavation can be seen to the right along the roadside. And the pile of earth that you can see on the screen was then eventually moved because it was in the way, because that's where they extended the village. And that's exactly where the dovecote was found. Not the dovecote, the bakery. That's where they excavated the bakery. So all that was moved, and all that mound was put further over towards the left. On that note, that's me done for today. We will be looking at that image next week. Don't need to ask any questions about cosmetics. We'll be doing that next week. So what we're going to do now, we're going to get some gay abandon. We're going to get straight. We're going to get straight down to the undies. And talking about undies, Anne, tell us more.
Oh. Well, that was
Not about
interesting.
your undies.
Well, it was an interesting talk. My undies are actually, I'm still in my pajamas, but
Oh,
no, it was interesting, focusing on the dispensers, because obviously you keep hearing their name and you don't realize, I didn't realize how, important they were, and how nasty they were really in the end.
yeah.
So, yeah, and also focusing on these excavations of the 80s, like you say. Before then, when they were doing redevelopment in the 60s, they hadn't really found anything, or maybe they weren't looking, but
They weren't looking.
it reminds me of when I was a child. I mean, there were so many derelict areas of Newport, and I'm sure Barry was the same. But and of course the war, the war was only, when I was born in 52, the war was only over 7 years. So there was, destruction, and I don't know, maybe businesses going out of business, and, all sorts of social problems that affected the towns, and the buildings. So I'm glad that they went back to it in the 80s, and, started to rediscover these things. But I suppose there was more leisure time maybe in the 80s to do that.
And this was the glorious age of Margaret Thatcher and the rebuilding of Britain from a terrible age of socialism. So there we go. I thought I'd put that in because I can't stand socialism, but that's life.
Well,
sorry.
I suppose you think that they haven't got any, interest in heritage. Maybe that's the problem. Yeah, that is maybe a problem.
No, basically in the 1980s, Margaret Thatcher decided to continue the manpower services scheme, and there was a lot of funding placed into it. And my
Yeah.
biggest about that government was that they removed the manpower services scheme, and it was so successful. And Peter would have come across people from the manpower services scheme. I used
to work for it. I used to.
Yeah.
I used to in the civil service, and I remember manpower services. It was
and it was an opportunity for people to work not only in archaeology but work on Flathome. There were volunteers from the manpower services scheme working on Flathome, and they were working on all these these projects, and it was just such a successful thing, and I don't know why it was ever dropped. It's a shame. It really is.
Computers. I think computers. That's what affected it.
Tories.
Sorry, what did you say, Peter?
Tories.
Tories.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, so you didn't mind the manpower services? Was that socialist?
Yes.
Oh.
And well, BP built a big training center and employed a load of training people within their site during that period.
Yeah. And there was like, for disabled people as well.
They subsidized apprenticeships in all disciplines.
Yeah. Oh, so they need to bring it back.
Well, it's a bit late for that. I think people are too bone idle to get off their backsides. Right. Okay. So, but it was the bone idle who couldn't get off their backsides who were actually the ones who were actually in these schemes. And I know that it built up a lot of, I'm going to say it. I come across a lot of people at Cosmeston as a volunteer there as a young lad, that my parents wouldn't allow me anywhere near these people in normal society. But some reason, the camaraderie, the sense of these people, these were the lowest of the low people. But given working on these archaeological projects, they turned out to be really nice, rounded people, and lots of them went on to other jobs. And that's why working in archaeology gave them a sense of connection, and it made them really nice, rounded people. And I think this is what Peter come across. Lots of these people that Peter come across are people that you wouldn't say hi to in the street, but in the situations that they were given, they actually worked their socks off and give them the respect where it's due.
Well, here.
Thank you, Anne. Anything you'd like to say, Peter?
For me,
Yeah.
oh, that room closest to the hotel.
Yeah.
That seems to be us partly below ground. So you have to go down into it.
Yeah. Basically what would happen, you would go from the outside of the building.
Yeah.
And there was another entrance there. Oh, let's have a little look. Hang on a minute. Let's have a little look at this one and start quick. You have to be bloody awkward, Peter. Basically, it said that you had access from the north, not the south. There, access from the north. You went down some steps, and then you went through a little doorway, which isn't actually shown there. And then you went into like a cellar, and then you went up steps then into the rest of the building. And then you might go left into the tower. So no, yeah. So if you're going in from the north, you're going left, but as you're seeing it, you're going into the right as you look at it on the plan. So yeah, you are right. It is subterranean, and there's cobbles in it, and there's a drain in it, and there's the only remaining tiles at Glanimore. The only remaining tiles there. And the other thing as well is I know full well that. That 90% of all the tiles and brick and all the rest of it were used to build up the ground level at Glanimore, so they're still there underneath the surface. They didn't sell them all. Right, anyway, thanks for that, Peter. If there's nothing else you want to say, Pete.
No, that's fine.
Right, so that and Pete, when you said which Pete, these ones, Pete. I just getting confusing. Right. Talking about confusing, Richard, anything you'd like to say?
No, really, I don't think that's all pretty interesting.
Thank you. And I would like to say, if anyone wants any eggs tomorrow, I will be at the studio from 1:30 until 3:30, and then everyone's buggering off. If anyone wants eggs, I will be there because I've got some other stuff to do at the studio. So there we go. And Richard, if you want to drop down and you've got any paperwork or whatever, please do. So anyone else, Kate? No? No, Kathy looked upset then.
No, it's all very good. Thank you.
Right, so what we're going to do...
Muted.
Oh, thank buggery for that. Right, okay, here we go. Ask to unmute. I've asked her to unmute, Pete.
What's that?
What's that, Pete? I've asked her to unmute, Pete. Come on, unmute. Pete wants to go shopping.
There we go.
It's Kate's go now.
Yeah, I know
Here we
it's
go.
Kate's go.
Oh, right.
Anything you want to say, Kate?
Oh, that was fun. Dispenser, I wonder where he was arrested from, because when Edward II was arrested, he'd been at Llantrisant and he'd run away from there, and they caught him just outside
Oh, no, he
Tonnereville.
was captured with Edward II.
He was with him. Oh, even
He was with
better.
him. Apparently, they were lovers, a bit like me and Pete.
Oh.
We don't talk about it.
So there you are at Pantabrad, and that's what it means, the place of treason.
The place of treason, exactly. Pantabrad, which is just north of the M4 corridor, isn't it?
Oh.
Or south?
Yeah, it's
Yes, I
a
remember.
lane that goes between Llantrisant and Tonnereville. Comes
The
up
place-
through the backside of Tonnereville in a place called Treverig, and the Red Cow pub there.
I don't think using the backside was really appropriate in regards to Edward II.
Oh, Edward II, honestly, he had no shame.
He had no shame.
He could have got away with it if he hadn't bought his lover so many furs and jewels and given him things that belonged to the Queen.
Why
You
was
know.
I born then?
Exactly. So anything else you want to say, Kate?
That's all I think.
Right, the only one left is Ruth.
Hello. Had a lovely time at that thing in London.
The Ghost Walk,
The Ghost Walk.
Llandaff.
Oh.
That's good.
How many ghost walks are you doing? I keep seeing them popping up everywhere.
I
No,
know. It was
no, it's-
amazing.
It's only the Landaf one, but it's done every week. So there you go.
I tell you what,
And
I
you
had-
advertise. Yeah.
I had-
Stunning setting, absolutely
Anne,
stunning.
Anne,
Hello.
I had a ghost on my shoulder
Oh, really?
pushing me down, and they put the ghost meter on my shoulder, and it just went mad.
Oh my God. Oh,
I see ghosts. I'm very ghostly, you know.
Psychic. Psychic.
Just not very Englishy.
Just
Not very
Ooh.
languagey.
No, he's pushing my arm down like that, and
Oh my goodness.
the guy behind me said I could see him doing it, and he put the ghost meter on my shoulder, and it just go. Wah!
Oh. Oh,
Oh
God.
my God! I tell you what, go and put the ghost meter around Peter. You'll soon
No,
see.
I,
Kelly.
I don't like ghosts. I
Oh,
I
doesn't
wouldn't
bother
go on
me.
a ghost walk.
Do
I-
you know what Anne, do you think I should run that ghost walk that I had a few years ago? I advertised it was the ghost walk was meet outside the Barry train station,
Yeah.
ghost walk to see ghosts of ghosts that don't actually exist,
What do you want?
and people actually booked on it.
Oh, well, that's all right. Yeah, well, you don't mind going on a ghost walk so long as you don't get any ghosts.
Hang on, you're telling people that there's no invisible ghosts of goats, but people still book on it. I think they must
I
have come
know.
from
Well,
Holbrook Road.
it's just fun. It's just fun, I mean, I enjoyed
Oh,
the
it's the
movie.
story.
I've
In
seen
our
three
house,
ghosts.
in our house in Portleven,
I've
there's a
seen
ghost
three.
room.
I
Yeah.
enjoyed
And several
the
people have,
Everyone shut up, let Peter talk. Let Peter talk. Go on.
there's a ghost room, and several people have actually experienced this cold presence that was in the room. You say go away, and it went. It
Yeah.
was a room overlooking the coal yard, but it was everybody said it was the ghost room, and many people who stayed in there had the same sensation of this cold
Ooh,
presence.
creepy.
And then once you
Wow.
said goodbye, go away it went.
It's auto-suggestion. Auto-suggestion.
Well, no, because they didn't know about it.
Well, they did. Somebody
Other
messes
people
it.
didn't know about it.
Oh, it was after the
They were
event. wasn't it?
strangers.
Oh, right.
It was
Wow.
a guest house, and these people came from all over the country and stayed there. And they thought there was something strange in here.
Oh.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
I had Berry Ghost in my old house on the parade. I had a friend who was a bit of a psychic medium, and I didn't sense anything myself. But he said there were three young men
Ooh.
who came, who it was just like
What's that?
something recurring over and playing over and over and over again, then coming in from work and laughing and joking. And they were boarding there between the wars, working at the docks. Anyway, that was the story. And they were from up the valleys, two brothers and a cousin.
I mean, I think that there's something like time and everything is very complicated, and like Joe, like Carl said, the line is always there.
Yeah.
The
It
timeline.
certainly is. It certainly is. Can
I
can I
demonstrated
just-
the pendulum, the effect of the pendulum.
Yeah.
And you saw how it actually reacted to different things
Yeah.
and what caused it to react.
Energy. Yeah, I agree in energy. I believe in energies,
What energy? Where was it from?
I don't know. It's a time warp,
I mean, I've seen three ghosts in my life.
You what?
I've seen three ghosts.
Oh, have you? Yeah, I know some people see them. I know. But there we are.
Oh,
Carl's having a rest.
Remember that it would answer questions as well.
Oh, yes. Am I having a baby? A boy or a girl?
Are you having a baby? Well, that's a
No.
definite no answer.
Oh, they
Ah,
used to do it
see-
like
see-
what sex,
Yeah.
Hey, can I just say, can I just make a comment, right? You know, when you lean over, right, we actually had a full view of something
Oh dear.
Yeah.
on 2 occasions.
Sorry about that. Because I am sitting in my boxers, yes.
Yeah, we know.
I didn't see
Oh
anything.
no, you're going to be demonetized
I
now.
didn't see anything.
I can't
Yeah,
believe you.
completely.
Ow.
On that note, is there anything anyone else wants to say before we call it a day? Because I will be at the studio tomorrow from 1:30 until 3:30.
Okay.
Anyone else got anything else to say before we finish?
No.
No.
Oh,
It's been lovely. Thank you.
Lovely
just
to
say
meet you,
two
Anne.
things?
Great to see
I just
everyone.
want to say 2 things. Hang on. Have you had a letter off us, Anne and Kate?
Have we had what?
Yes. Yes.
Oh, right.
Yes. Thank
Okay.
you.
Yes,
What?
and me.
And very juicy and full of stuff. Excellent.
And the other thing as well is Kate and Kathy, don't forget your shackles this week.
I got my shackles.
Good. Don't forget your shackles. If there's no other questions, anyone got anything else to say quick before we call it a day?
No,
Right,
good.
okay.
See you tomorrow.
Okay, see you tomorrow. If there's nobody
Right.
else, I'll see Richard tonight and maybe
Yeah.
Monsoir tonight. If not, I'm going to say good night to a goodbye. I'm going to say thank you to Anne, Richard, Kate, Kathy, Peter, and Bruce, and I will see you all next week or tonight or tomorrow. Take care. Bye.
Bye.
Cheerio.
Thank you
Bye.
for
I'm
your
glad you said
support. Bye.
tonight. I would have forgotten again.
And tell Del. Okay, ta-ra, guys. Bye. Ta-ra, guys. And I'll see you all next week. It'd be good to see you in the flesh again, Kathy. Take care. Bye. Anyway, those watching online, don't forget to like and subscribe. And also, if you want to press the blue button down below, which says join, is £1.99 a month. And we've got other updates that we can send you. Anyway, thanks for joining us. If anyone wants to ask me a personal question about Barry and the district, about its history, you can do so now. You've got basically 2 minutes to ask me a question about the Barry district, and there's 4 of you. Go ahead and ask me now. And I'm gonna dig out of my drawer to see if I've got any of those postcards, because if anyone wants to, because we've got postcards of the Glanamore, which I think I've got here. If there's any left, I don't think there's any in this stack, unfortunately. Oh, there we go. We've got these postcards that we send out. We've got these that we send out with Romans in South Wales. We've got these as well that we send out as well. So you get copies of my books, and you get these postcards. Ones with mildew on the back, which isn't great. So anyway, thanks for watching. Nobody's got any questions today, so I'm going to call it a day. It's absolutely bucketing down now. I wanted to get some stuff done outside, and we've got there we go. So nobody got any questions they want to ask about the Barry district and its history? Nobody's got any other questions? We're going to call that a day. Thanks for watching online, and watch what you're doing. Thank you very much. I'm going to look in the chat box to see if there's anything. Nothing in the chat box on 1, 2, 3. That's done. And we're going to say goodbye. Arrivederci. Thank you very much. Take care. Goodbye. Look after yourselves. Okay. Bye.